Well, we are going to be taking the view of another person, somebody who's been in the space as well. Cynthia Mbamalu is the Director of Programs at Yaga Africa, and she joins us virtually this morning. Cynthia, thank you so much for your patience with us this morning. I'm sure you also watched what transpired on the floor of the Senate yesterday, and you've also heard the explanation of Senator Adara Modu. What are your thoughts on it?
Thank you, and good morning. Good morning, Nigerians. I think it's quite interesting, one, to observe the events of yesterday, but also to listen to Distinguished as he tried to explain, one, the rules of the Senate, but also the justification for why the Senate president acted the way he did in response to the agitations by Senator Natasha. And I think if there's certain things we've learned from this is, first, we can already see that there is a politics of seat allocation. And interestingly, when he somehow mentioned the former Senate president choosing where to sit, it just kind of affirmed a lot of my suspicion on that one. When it comes to allocation of seats, yes, the rule book provides the Senate president with the power to allocate seats to senators and even to review allocations, provided that they can review allocations at different points in time. It's provided in the rule book, but I think there's certain things we also forget that while there are certain provisions in the book, there's also the unspoken rules and practices, which gives certain people more access to determine where to sit, even if it's not clearly stated. So there's that part. The part around the power of allocation, why the seat is important is because where you are located to sit down is what gives you sort of the grounds to speak, and which is why I said where you are located is where you speak from. So there is that part, and I think one of the conversations from not just this experience, but the experience of Senator Akpabio in the 7th Assembly. If you watch that video, I'd even gone to look for the video yesterday, and if you had seen, in fact, he was even more cantankerous than Distinguished Senator Natasha, because he didn't sit on the location. He kept moving, and he was willing to hit anyone on his way. At least she remained on a position, and she kept making reference to other 10 on privileges from the rule book. And so if you look at that, you could see that there is obviously an issue with how seats are allocated, especially with how lawmakers who experience the National Assemblies personally relates to that, because we don't know her experiences. And obviously from her comments, you can tell that there are underlying issues that have not been addressed. And so there is that. And that is why I said the power of the politics of seat allocation is something that needs to be reviewed, even from in their rule books as members of the parliament. The second for me, honestly, is in her agitation, she had made reference to speaking on Order 10 on privileges. Now, the idea of the privileges, the order on privileges, is it gives senators the opportunities to be heard without notice on issues that they feel is of utmost importance. And what I was expecting was, because she had raised a point of order and said, on the privileges, I want to be heard. 13 seconds, less than 30 seconds into what she was saying, she was shut down. Not just shut down, there was an order for the Senate president for sergeants at arms to take her out of the chamber. And I felt, for me, that in itself showed that there was even little tolerance to listen to the agitation she had presented. If you fast forward back to the 7th Assembly, I'm trying to remember which year, when Senator Akpabio raised his own objection and agitations on his allocation onto the seat, where he promptly said he was moved without being given reasons why he was moved. There was no order for sergeant at arms to take him out within the period of his agitation. Instead, the Senate president at the time allowed it to play out, and then you had other senators intervening, as was this case. And so for me, it's also about how the rules are applied in the Senate. And because the order on privileges gives every senator equal opportunity to be heard and listened to. And in fact, it gives them an opportunity to speak without notice if they are raising. So that order is more like it provides them some level of immunity to speak on specific issues. if you read the details around that order she was referring to on privileges. And so if you counterpose that with, if you juxtapose that rather with the conversations around the allocation and then the immediate order within seconds of her speaking for her to be taken out of the Senate, I believe that in all of this, there is so obviously an underlying issue that is yet to be addressed. And that is because this is not the first time we've seen an altercation between distinguished Senator Natasha and the Senate President Akpabio. And I think at this point, there is a bigger call for us to even begin to pay more attention into what happens in the National Assembly.
Cynthia, I want to be able to, because we are running out of time, I want to be able to get your thoughts on something else that's going on. Because, you know, we've heard all of these things and we watched it happen. One of the major issues people have had is the way she responded. Now, even in advocacy, even when we talk to kids, if you do feel uncomfortable, if you feel like you're being bullied, if you feel like your voice is not being heard, you should speak up for yourself. But is there a way to do it? And in your view, did she maybe cross the line? Maybe she was a little too angry, you know, because those are some of the things that we're seeing online. Or maybe it should have been done differently. Maybe you should have spoken to him in private, and then afterwards maybe you should have apologized, because like you stated in that video of Godswill Akpabio, when Saraki was Senate President, he actually apologized for his outburst. Was there some line crossed here by Senator Natasha?
Yeah, let's also put in mind that he apologized after a long period of altercation, even longer than what we observed. And there were different contexts. I do believe that, one, I don't like to bring in gender, but I'll bring in gender because we observe proceedings in both chambers, and most times they are aired live. You can follow that. We've seen even tougher and angrier agitations by senators. And no one has questioned them for being too angry, because most times they are men. And so it's expected that a man can express his grievances at every length. But when it's a woman, why is it always expected that, oh, you should have done it differently? She's a politician. She's a senator. We've been in we've watched the National Assembly where members even get angry that they are raising seats against themselves, not just in Nigeria, in several parliaments in the world. This is how politicians most times air their views. She wasn't violent. She wasn't insultive. She kept making reference to an order in their rule book, and she was speaking based on it. And like I said, I don't know her experiences, but I also think we need to be a lot more fairer to the females who get into politics. We shouldn't judge women with different standards than we judge men. So in this situation, for me,
all right, well, we do have to wrap it up there.
We've seen lawmakers get angry and scream, and no one has told them, oh, the way you did that is different. So for me, I actually believe that we shouldn't judge her differently. Rather, for apologies, subsequently, I do believe that, yes, at the end of it, because you're in a member of the Senate, you should be like, okay, I'm sorry if what I said offended you, but I wanted to be heard because of 1, 2, 3, 4.
We do have to wrap it up there, Cynthia. But thank you very much for sharing your views with us, and good luck with all the work you have ahead of you.
Thank you.